creative Christians. Welcome to today's update. I wanted to update y'all on my Substack. My latest post that I just released is on the Protestant Reformation, its historical roots, and why it matters today. The other thing I want to update y'all on is actually something I'm working on currently as a future post, but something I'd love to share with you for the heart and maybe the vision behind it. So this post is called Reclaiming the Sabbath, Biblical Foundations, Historical Development, and Contemporary Practice. And I will say, it's a mouthful to read. It might be interesting to read as well as a whole because, let me see, I have 38 citations, footnotes, and I have my biography section. I have at least 2,600 words already, and I expect to write more. So, if any of you are like me and like to write intellectual type content or just honestly want to unpack that, you will like this. If you don't enjoy that, there's also some practical sections of this as well. So I want to break down some of what I've learned through watching, learning, or reading academic sources. I've read theologians such as, let me get their names real quick for you. Carson D.A., I've even looked at some early church people like Ignatius of Antioch. He wrote a letter to let me see if I can pronounce this. Letter to the Magnesians. Yes, letter to the Magnesians. So he was a well-known theologian of his day. Justin Martyr. Some primary sources through him. I've looked at D. Wall E. His book Seeking God: The Way of Saint Benedict. I've looked at Hall S.G. Um, Doctrine and Practice of the Early Church. I've looked at Lightfoot J.B. I've looked at Aaron J., Hugh H., John Mark Comer a bit for some pastoral things on the Sabbath itself. Kenneth Boa. I've looked at Barker KL, and then Bordick DW. So I've looked at an abundance of theologians for this project. It's super fun, interesting. I probably spent around 25 to 30 hours on it already, and I'm going to spend even more. But I want to share with you some of these sections, some of the reasons why I think you should listen to this and even read this article, and why it is relevant today. So let's look at, for example, some of the practicality of this. More than just the Sabbath itself, let's look at its roots and its practicality. So the Sabbath is what's known as a creation ordinance, which is this created entity that God made. Well, theologians call it this created practice or rhythm of creation itself. So we look at things like, let me actually pull up the name of the guy. W. Robert Godfrey. He's a Presbyterian, I believe. He had mentioned a creative ordinance is something God establishes at creation, a rhythm of life and a way of life. So he wrote a really good article on that, and then he even wrote an essay, and he has a whole series on that as well. I looked at that, and we find that in Genesis 2:2-3, where it says God blessed the seventh day and he rested. It's declared holy as a result. That's the cliff notes for y'all. Then you go all the way to the Mosaic Law. And in Genesis, you'll find a few examples of the Sabbath appearing at least like it's being practiced, but at least in the larger biblical narrative, the Sabbath isn't something that's widely practiced until at least the Mosaic Law. So we look at things like Exodus, I think it's Exodus 16, where the Israelites are commanded by God that they can't collect manna on the seventh day because it's declared holy. So God gives them everything they need on the sixth day, and they have to trust God on that. Then we look at Exodus 20, and here it's incredible because in the Ten Commandments, the Lord makes the Sabbath, which started as a creation ordinance, to this law that the Israelites are commanded to follow. And there's some pretty harsh penalties if they don't follow this law. For example, if they break the Sabbath, Moses commands a death penalty. And you ask, why the death penalty? I've looked at some scholars on this, and mainly the reasons they have given is the Sabbath itself is an institution created by the Creator, and Israel as a nation was commanded to trust in God as He is the creator who created these laws for them. And they were under a covenant with this God. So, although they don't know what goes on in the heart or mind of God Himself, they can give answers as far as, well, this is the author of the universe who's given this command, and they're under a covenant with Him. So, you would expect there are things we might not quite understand about God itself, God Himself, that He knows a greater picture or story. Now, not to say that there's other theologians who've explored this deeper. I probably should have, honestly, spent more time looking at this. I could have. There's one theologian that I'll probably link in the description of this video who has spent considerable time, at least to my knowledge, dealing with some of the reasons as to why God has chosen to be so strict on His penalties with the Sabbath. It was a day for the Israelites to not only remember this is a holy day created by the Lord. It was a day to remember He had freed them. The Sabbath is not only a day for the Israelites to practice rest, it's a day for them to remember they were once slaves in Egypt, and God, by His divine honor and privilege, has delivered them from the bondage of slavery. And that's a pretty incredible piece of news for them. So the Sabbath was a day they were to reflect on this, and we actually see this in Deuteronomy 5. So if you read Deuteronomy 5, you'll see another version of the Ten Commandments given by Moses. It may be a recounting, and he gives a different reason as to practice the Sabbath. Now, it wasn't only for this purpose. Let me go into something real quick. So if we look at let's say Exodus 20:10-11, it says, "But on the seventh day, it's a Sabbath day to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter or your male slave or your female slave or your cattle or your resident who stays with you. For in the 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth and the sea and everything that is in them, and He rested on the seventh day. For this reason the Lord blessed the seventh day and made it holy." So, just to give you a short overview of this scripture, maybe even as it's called a exegesis, Moses gave this command directly from God, from Mount Sinai. "In it you shall not work," is likely for the purpose of providing rest for their servants, just as God delivered His people into rest from the burden of slavery. And we see that in Deuteronomy 5:14-15. From that, let's talk about something more important. The day of ceasing labor provided rest for Israel and the opportunity to renew its covenant duties, free from daily concerns, is what one theologian said. The text appeals to something known as a creation ordinance. A creation ordinance is something considered a foundational pattern from creation, according to God's design from the very beginning. It's a principle or practice that God established at creation for all humanity to follow, such as marriage, work, and Sabbath rest. Thus, this command is anchored in creation itself. I believe the appropriate conclusion from Scripture is that it honors God when we observe the Sabbath. The Sabbath day is not simply a Mosaic institute, it began at creation. Kenneth Boa, a contemporary theologian, argues that we exist for God, not for ourselves, but we exist for the Father through the Son. And a note here I have is the Son gave us life through the new covenant as its mediator. So we are made in God's image, created to become more like our Creator. We see that in Colossians 3:10. We see that in 1 Corinthians 11:7. We see that in Genesis 1:26-27. And I love this verse. Ephesians 3:23-24 describes that we are to be renewed in the spirit of our minds and to put upon the new self, which is the likeness of God that has been created in righteousness. So we are made in God's image, God's design. What Ephesians 4:23-24 is saying is that we are to renew our minds on Christ, to put on a new self, to become more like the image of God. And this was not only an intention for the New Testament believers, it's the intention for creation itself. It's the intention for us that we would look more like God in our daily actions, our verbiage, the way we talk, the way we think. It would become more and more like God's image, the model He gave us. And I love that. think that's the most important thing to cover as far as the Sabbath's origins. We see it in Scripture. To give you a quick summary, we see it in Genesis 2 through 3. Um, we actually then see it in Exodus 20 and Exodus 16 and Deuteronomy 5. And actually we see it in the New Testament. Hebrews 4:9 uses the term sabbathimos, which is a unique Greek word meaning Sabbath keeping, as a metaphor for ultimate rest God promises to his people, implying the continuance of a Sabbath significance. Now, there is a lot of different ways the early church practiced this. And we look at the historical Sabbath, and I have a whole section on this. I'm not going to get into it because it is complex. But I can say this. The Sabbath, sorry. But I can say this. The Sabbath is important because God created it. It's important because it provides an opportunity to rest, renew our minds on the Lord. For the Israelites, it provided a way for them to fulfill the covenant duties free from the daily concerns. Like even then, for the housewife, for the slaves, it offered them time off from doing any earthly duty. You look at these early, these early cultures. There wasn't a lot of that going around, but God provided His people rest, not only from slavery, but He provided rest for their slaves, their household servants, the women and children, and the men. So it's pretty incredible. Now, some people debate whether the day you practice the Sabbath is important. I would argue from, I don't know, maybe the 7 to 8 scholars I've read on this subject, some who are pretty significant, that it doesn't matter quite as much as it does that you honor the Sabbath. So, as long as you have a day of rest in your week, where you're reflecting on God's promises, where you're free from some of the daily concerns that stop you from renewing your mind more greatly on Christ's affections and His love, I think that's good enough. Now, could I be wrong? Yes. But in all the research I've been doing, past 20, 30 hours of research, I haven't found any reason, so to speak, that we can't have a Sabbath day other than a Sunday, the Lord's Day, or Saturday, the traditional Sabbath. Do feel free to share your thoughts in the comments on this. And I know there's probably a lot of different beliefs out there regarding this practice. But let me also say that it matters more on the intention and even the practice and principles you're employing on your Sabbath. The basic practices, I would argue, are rest, worship, and delight in God. And this is where I want to go into the practicality. I want you to know that on the Sabbath, there are practical steps you can take to employ these principles, these core principles: rest, worship, and delight in the Lord. So this is what I wrote as far as this section. I realize that I'm running the risk of providing historical and biblical context, yet avoiding the most important thing: practicing the Sabbath itself. The most practical way I know of that one can implement the Sabbath in their life is through what is called a way of life. One of the most well-known monastics, Saint Benedict, perhaps the father of Western monasticism, developed a rule of life centered on 3 things: contemplation, study, and work. Now, contemplation, otherwise known as contemplative prayer, permeates everything for the monk. Life is centered on intensely and constantly in God's presence, reducing dependence on earthly things. Now, engaging one's mind through study is another core principle of St. Benedict's way of life. Daily rhythms were structured around the daily office. Okay, I'm going to try my best on this first. Liturgy of the hours, scripture reading, and communal worship. Now, he has an account. I won't read it, but there is an account. We have translations of his works, and it's super interesting to see their practice on Sunday specifically, as far as employing studying of the scriptures and reflecting on that. So feel free to read my article to take a look at that. And then the rule also mixes manual labor or work with spiritual practices, teaching reverence for material things, people, and even the smallest tasks itself. So the monastics saw everything as holy, created by God, and even the smallest tasks would have reverence, which is pretty interesting. This balance forms a sacramental view that ordinary life can be holy and purges pride from monks under Saint Benedict. So, together, these principles make up Saint Benedict's way of life. You don't always have to follow these general guidelines the way he prescribed. It was a very different time, very different period of time. But you should implement a rule of life for yourself. And this is where I'm probably going to close off this video, so to speak. It's not meant, these practices by no means are meant to impose legalism on your pursuit of God. Rather, the rhythms are designed to create an environment where you can rest in God. So the question I have is, what can you implement from these Sabbath practices on your Sabbath, whether you practice it traditionally or on the Lord's Day? What can you apply, and how can you develop and grow in your faith through that? I also have a section here on solitude and rest and silence, because they're related to Sabbath in a way. But that's kind of beyond the scope of this episode. So if you enjoyed this, if you liked a historical view, the biblical kind of view of the Sabbath, and you want more of this, feel free to subscribe and comment, or even look more to the future. if I'm saying that right, I'll be uploading more videos on spiritual disciplines, spiritual practices, and ways you can grow in your faith as we move forward. For the moment being, this is going to have to cover it, but I'll actually share some good news with y'all. This year, I'll be focusing on writing theology a lot more than I have been in the past. So I plan on writing around seven articles on 7 long essays, I should say, that are like a synthesized essay of scholarly consensus on these things, so that you can see the biblical and from an exegetical point of view what spiritual practices should look like in the church. And I might even make a short book out. We'll see. But that's way up in the future. So for the meantime, I would love for y'all to share this post and just put in the comments one thing you got out of this episode. Without further ado, have a good one, and I'll see y'all in the next one.